I've said many times before, Charlie Kirk is a stronger man than me because being called a rapist, being called this white man who's dealing with white privilege, being told that the patriarchy is the reason for why women are failing, and yada, yada, yada. These talking points that are spewed by these kids on the college campuses are just really frustrating and annoying, especially when you know it's not true and you can back it up with facts. But like having to re-educate from campus to campus over and over again, it's got to be tiring, exhausting, and yet he is a man who's willing to do the job for the betterment of America, and I appreciate that. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to Resist the Mainstream because it ensures YouTube that you are enjoying our videos, and in turn, it will continually show up in your feed, and it'll push it out to more people. I'm Titus. Let's get into this video.
The kind of person I would expect.
What does that mean?
You're a living stereotype. You got your, I see you wearing a good hat. You're I guess to some people, decent. You probably grew up with middle class.
Why does me being white have to do with anything?
Ma'am, you don't need ad hominem to win an argument.
I'm just saying.
But why are you racially stereotyping? No, I know, but you're using race immediately. I mean, I've never brought up race in any of these conversations. I look like a frat brother.
You look like a frat brother is what I'm
So that means I'm more enlightened than other people?
No, the opposite. You're more likely to
What the? Wait, so I'm more likely to rape somebody?
Yes, so I'm
Because of how they look? But I don't appreciate the racial stereotyping. You're saying I'm the type of people that
White people don't deal like with racism. It's true. I've been the white supremacist stereotype too.
Why is it always about race with the left? I don't understand that.
Because it matters.
Pluribus unum, out of many one. Pluribus unum. Just because you take a lot of courses, it probably means you're less smart than before you started.
That's funny, hon. I graduated SOMA with a history degree.
That's why you're so confused.
This girl sounded like she was drunk. Am I tripping? Drop a comment and let me know. Does she not sound like she was drunk out of her mind? You look like I guess a decent, ultra average looking guy. This is like, what do you want? Get it out. Whatever it is you're trying to say. You literally sat there for a minute and 45 seconds and said absolutely nothing of substance. And all you were doing was, as most college kids do, regurgitate talking points that aren't even like based in fact. You're white. You look like a frat boy. You're decent looking. You're privileged. You're what? You look like a rapist. Like, what does that even mean? And how you can't just sit there and just throw things and hope that they stick. They have to make sense. And these people, my goodness, they just don't make sense. And you don't need to make everything about race. Like, obviously, there's more nuance to a lot of complex conversations when it comes to race, culture, where you live locationally has a lot to do with the environment and the way certain people do believe regarding race. I'm not gonna sit there and act like it doesn't exist in some places. It does. Some people have probably grown up with a lot of racist people, individuals that treated them a certain way that was wrong. That does not necessarily mean it represents the entirety of our country. I had literally a conversation with my cousin at a late rescheduled Christmas party talking about how the way that we view the world was so different, because I was like, I do not judge people in generalities. I don't say every white person believes this way. I go on an individual by individual basis. If this person's racist, that sucks if they're white, but that doesn't mean this white person is. They don't all have this unconscious bias or this inherent racism. If it's inherent, if you are inherently this way, then there's nothing that can be done about it because just it's in your DNA. You can't help it. Like, it's taught behavior. Not every parent. You're assuming every single white parent taught their kid that black means bad. I don't believe that. I do not believe that. But we're gonna go into the next video. Let's see what Charlie has to say to these college kids.
Do you believe we live in a patriarchy?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Then why is it
Men
that
in this
then why is it
society-
that more women graduate than men from college? Women in their 20s earn more than men. Men are far likely to commit bankruptcy. Men are much more likely to commit suicide. Men are much more likely to be homeless. Men are much more likely to go to war and die. Women control 80% of the financial decisions in this country. Women that of course, look it up yourself. Women in their 20s are far off better than men. Women control most of the financial.
That's true. That's very
17 out of the last 18 years of doctorate degrees, women got more doctorates than men. Women are far better off than men in this society right now.
You really believe that?
Show me one statistic.
that.
Show me one statistic that points to the opposite. I just named 15. Suicide rates, homeless rates, bankruptcy rates, depression, murder, jail, prison, you name it. Men are much more likely to commit crimes, go to prison, be bankrupt. And also suicide. Women in their 20s earn much more than men in their 20s. You know why that changes?
What about the 1%, which is predominantly male millionaires and billionaires?
Well, that's because women voluntarily leave the workforce in their late 20s to have children. When most promotions are given out and most raises are given out, that's when men stay in the corporate culture and climb the exponential ladder that happens between the ages of 28 and 40. When women stay in the corporate culture, that's when they get promoted faster than men. When women have the same similar educational degree, same work experience, the same work ethic, they earn more than men. We live in a society that women are doing much better than men.
Yeah, I can promise you she didn't want to hear that. She did not want to hear that. And that's the thing, like, I might get flack for this, but like, I think there are like gender roles that like most people just are genetically conforming to. Like a lot of women they want to have kids. So they may work their way up the corporate ladder. They may be more qualified, maybe better than the job at somebody else, or equal. And then they're like, well, I want to have a family. And that they want to prioritize that. And the man's like, okay, well, I want to provide for my family because that's just inherent in us. We want to do that. That's not a bad thing. We don't need to be the exact same. And I think that this fusion of this non-binary, everything's a construct, is just kind of blinding the eyes of so many people that just don't even want to be what they feel like they're missing out on. Like, why are all these men up here? Why are all the men the billionaires at the top of the companies? It's like, well, like you just said, a lot of women don't. They want to have kids. They want to have a family. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Women are nurturers. They want to be involved in their kids' lives. They want to raise their children. And there's nothing wrong with that. And obviously men do too, but they want to provide for the whole family. There's just gender roles I feel like that we are inherently like prone to wanting to be genetically just wanting to live out. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, the wokeness these days, its inability to be able to comprehend that's just what most people want, has really caused a massive unnecessary divide in our country, and it's ridiculous. Now, obviously, there's like the exceptions to the rule. The people that I don't want a family, I just want to build my way up there, and I'm sure those women have made. I'm sure there's billionaire women out there. I have not looked into it, but I guarantee you they exist. And that 1%, you know how many people there are in the world? None of us are in that 1%. A lot of millions of men are not in that 1%. So anyways, we have one more video with Charlie Kirk talking to another well-mannered, well-meaning college kid. So let's get into that.
Just saying, just about human nature, you said that women are more likely to be nurses?
Nurturers, that's correct.
Nurturers. Okay, but you said nursing was a major that most women went into.
And they earn more than male nurses, that's correct.
Okay.
Because nursing is akin to nurturing.
Okay.
Women find, because of our Darwinian process of evolution, women were more likely to nurture young children, more likely to take care of the wounded soldiers.
Okay, so you're saying nursing is very nurturing and everything like
Typically.
that? Okay.
Not always, not exclusively.
But the reason that women are predominantly nurses is because men were nurses predominantly before the Civil War, and then when the men went off to fight, women started becoming nurses because they didn't have enough men.
That's part of it. You know, the interesting point is women were not allowed to be nurses before the Civil War. So as soon as they were allowed to be nurses, that's right. So as soon as they opened it up in the Civil War, women nursing went up exponentially. That's just one instance, one example.
Then that immediately takes away the point, his point. The point is now debunked. You weren't allowed to be a nurse. Now you are allowed to be a nurse, and that's what you gravitate towards. So you can't sit there and be like, oh, the men were nurses before. It's because women weren't allowed. Charlie.
Lots of fields where women earn more than men. And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
There's lots of fields where men earn more than women. And if it's justified on work ethic and commitment to the job or what you study, then everyone should be okay with that. The majors that perform the best, that had the highest likelihood to get you a high-paying job, petroleum engineering, finance, business engineering, okay, are almost 80 to 90% men. If you go into majors that have a low likelihood of getting a high-paying job, not that they're less important, it's just the reality of it. Psychology, sociology, teaching, pre-K education, they're almost all women. That's because how our construct is, who we are, our DNA, no matter how much social engineering you try to do, women are going to be more likely to go towards something where you listen, you nurture, and you develop young children or people in a position of vulnerability, and men are going to go in a place where you have to hunt, where you have to go after deals, where you have to process information. We can't change that. Now, in the individual fields, women usually earn more than men in psychology. Women earn more than men in the STEM fields when they actually go there. And I think we should have more women in STEM. But to blame it on the patriarchy, to blame it on sexism.
So we're not going to do that thing. I love how he eloquently brings these facts to these kids, because the reason why a lot of these things are in place or the way that they are operating the way they are is not because of the patriarchy. These things that they try and villainize things that are a reality in a way based on nothing. And so I love that he brings all these to their attention, and hopefully they take what he's saying and it plants a seed in their mind. And they're like, okay, let me just be more open about what the reality of things are. And I think if we both did that on both sides of the political aisle, we'd be a lot more unified. Obviously, the powers that be do not want that. So that's why we need to persevere through, work together, talk, and all that fun stuff. Well, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment your thoughts down below. As usual, I want to know what you guys are thinking. It's always fun to watch these Charlie Kirk videos because he's really just, it's not always just destroys college kids. Sometimes it's really just educating and they're open to it. So anyways, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.